back to my channel, Bookmarked by Aaliyah, and welcome if you're new here. It is time for my February wrap-up. I'm so glad this month is over. I'm so ready to get to March, and I'm excited for like all the new things we're going to read, and we're going to read them together. I can't wait to March. I'm so glad I'm doing this wrap-up because it's not just me. Everybody, I feel like, has been in some form of a slump. I don't know if it's a life slump, a book slump, weather slump. I don't know what it is, but I feel like everything I've been seeing, like when I'm scrolling on TikTok or watching people's vlogs, everybody's saying the same thing. So it made me feel better because I'm like, okay, it's not just me. I need some happier reads. Spring is trying to come. I don't know. It's really, really gloomy today. So if the lighting in here looks weird, that's why. Let's get started. So first book I read was, again, I know this is the first book I read, but the rest of them probably won't go in, in any kind of order as always. So Bitter and Sweet, Rhonda McKnight. This book is, what do they call it? Low country historical fiction. It's set in South Carolina. It's set in South Carolina, and it follows two sisters and their great grandmother. I believe one of the greats. It might be a third great in there, but it follows them. It's multiple POVs. It's dual timeline. So you're going between the present time and early 1900s, and the great grandmother obviously is the early 1900s. So the two sisters get a phone call from the grandmother that the grandfather isn't doing too well, and so they come back home, to the grandmother's house because they spent so much time there. I don't know if they used to live there or not. I really can't remember all the details, but they come back to see about the grandfather. The family has a restaurant that's been in the family for like 80 plus years. And because the grandfather kind of runs it and he's, down bad, he wants them to try to save the restaurant. The sisters have some strife between them. I'm not going to say they're estranged, but there's definitely some beef there. So in this story, they're like working together to save the restaurant and to kind of build their relationship. Them building their relationship wasn't, the plan, but of course that kind of happened. So I love to see the growth in all the characters. My favorite part of this book were the past chapters. All the stuff that Tabitha had to deal with. That's the great grandmother. This was just one of those feel good historical fiction. And y'all know I love a good dual timeline and multiple POVs just to hear everybody's side of everything. It was heartbreaking, but it was also beautiful at the same time. Like it's just one of those you can't stop thinking about. It was to the point that I originally rated this 4.5, but literally like a couple of days ago, I was still thinking about this story and I went back and just gave it, a 5-star. I think I rated it 5-star, but I put like the 4.5 star, but I rounded up to 5. No, I made it a hardcore 5 because I can't stop thinking about this book. The author, the way she writes so much that I went and ordered another low country novel set in South Carolina by her. What's it called? The Thing About Home. And I'm jumping into that next month. I can't wait. This was a beautiful story. It was just one of those stories that you can get lost in and you forget you're reading. I ate this up. And I think I actually physically read about 85% of this. I think I only listened to a little bit of this, just like to and from work, because the story was so good. I did not want to be out of this story. So Bitter and Sweet, Rhonda McKnight. Then I have James, everybody's favorite. James is, if you don't know, because I'm sure everybody has talked about this book on YouTube, I feel like. And this is how I ended up getting persuaded from so many of you guys' channels, because you guys love this book so much. And I'm like, well, let me just see. I think I said in the previous video, I had to kind of do a little recap on Huckleberry Finn just because I don't remember the whole story. So after I got that little recap, just to kind of see like, what was that story really about? I was able to read this with more of an open mind, because I think had I gone into this, I don't know. Had I not done that little recap, I still would have been fine with the story. This story is a retelling, like I said, of Huckleberry Finn, but it's from Jim's perspective, Jim. It's from his perspective and all that he went through while being a runaway slave. He basically finds out that he's got a wife and he's got a kid or kids. I can't remember. And he's told by somebody that he's going to be sold, to another plantation, like in New Orleans or something like that. And instead of being captured because basically they were good to him on the plantation that he's on now, and he didn't want to run that risk of going to New Orleans and be in a, you know, a bad situation or a bad plantation, have a bad slave owner. So while he's running, Huckleberry Finn is running as well because he has a home situation that's not so hot and he wants to get away from that. So they end up going on this adventure together. I say adventure like it's fun, but no, not an, maybe that was the wrong word. They go on this journey together of him being a runaway slave and Huckleberry Finn running away from home, and all the things that you can imagine happens with him being a runaway slave. The fear, the suspense, the dogs, the just everything had me in this story. Like, it was so suspenseful that I couldn't put it down either. This was one of those reads that I went into like, this is not going to be good. All the girls are rating this 5 stars. I'm going to hate this story. No, I love this story. I got lost in, I will say 85% of these books that I read this month, I got lost. And that's like the whole point of why I read. I want to get lost. We read for escapism. We read for enjoyment. We read for a lot of reasons, but like me personally, I love these stories that I look up and hours have passed, or I look up and I'm like, oh, I live here. Oh, okay. Well, let me go ahead and be Aaliyah again, because I was a fly on the wall in whatever place that these stories were set in. And this was definitely a good one. Definitely one I think everybody should read. Definitely one I can't see anyone not enjoying. This is a good one, to the point that I also got Trees by Percival Everett because his writing just pulled me in. Definitely put this on your TBR if you have not read this already. It's a very, very good read. Then I have Keep You to Myself, Brianne Dennehy. I got this a while back. I don't even know why. Probably because y'all were talking about this one again. And I needed something to read in this last week, just because it's the end of the month. I didn't want to lock into something that was long, something I couldn't, finish before February was over. I didn't want to carry any books over to March. I just finished this one last night, so it's still kind of fresh in my head. This follows Synovie and Torin. Synovie he's had a complicated childhood. His mom left him. His grandmother basically raised him, but then she gets sick, breaks a hip. I can't remember. I really can't. I just finished this last night. I really can't remember because I was just only saying in the very beginning. She's in the hospital though, and she has to go to this like retirement community or something. So basically he ends up being in like a transitional housing situation when he gets a little bit older, because he was put into the system when he was about 17. But once he turned 18, he went into transitional housing. So he's basically trying to get on his feet. He doesn't have a car. He's got a job, but that job is kind of iffy. And he just wants a break. He just wants a break at life. So he meets this weird girl, is what I call her. And they end up being friends because he's like, he don't trust anybody. With the life that he's lived, he doesn't trust anyone. So he meets this girl. He ends up getting the opportunity with her to like clean up or something like that, or whatever, because he's really, really good at cleaning or whatever. Anywho, that has nothing to do with anything. The girl that he meets, it's her sister that he ends up building an attraction for, and it's vice versa. So this is following basically their love story. This book, it was mid for me, honestly. It was just mid. I don't know if it's just because I was reading so many like great pull you in stories that this was just kind of mid. But like I said, I picked this up just to get through, the rest of the month. And I have a lot of books like that are short, that are like really no big, they don't have a lot of substance. So I can just kind of pass the time. So this was my pass the time book, a good palate cleanser, nothing extraordinary. I will say that the way that he met Torin in this story was through the sister, like I said, but like, I feel like there could have been a better way to have them meet in this story, because he met the girl, but then she fell off the face of the earth. You never heard about her again, except one little part in the story, and she was mentioned. I'm like, so the way they met, what was that even for? Like, I just felt like there was a better way you could have, introduced them. But it was great to see his character development. He was mean and kind of standoffish, rude, in the beginning of this, kind of like how Demon was in Demon's Dream. But I was like, oh my God, am I about to read another one where we got these angry men? But then he softened up quicker than what Demon did. Maybe because it was only 200 some pages and Demon's Dream was 3,000 pages. I don't know. But this one, it was okay. It was okay. I'll just say that. It was okay. Will I read more by this author? I might pick up another book by this author just to kind of see what her flow is, because there is a sequel to this. I don't know that I care enough about Synovian Torn to go into that sequel. I may just pick up just something else by her. And the rest of these, I believe that I talked about on my vlog. So I'm not going to go into like great detail, but I Am Aya. This was another one, like I said, this one took you places. It took you places. Is this another one? Yes, this is another one I think I rated like 4.5 or 4.75 and literally had to go back and change it to a solid 5 just because I couldn't stop thinking about the characters. I could not stop thinking about how we use the word soulmate so loosely. You know, he's my soulmate, he's my soulmate. But this kind of lets you know what a soulmate is. And yes, it's magical realism. I get it, it's not real. But the way this story was told and the way she created this story from magical realism, like made me like believe in soulmates 100% more. It makes you wonder, like, is this how we get our soulmates? This follows Alexandra and Zach. Her father falls ill, so she has to come home and see about him. She meets the neighbor's grandson, Zach, and they go on a journey basically of finding her history. Her history's always been, you know, held back from her because of her mother. Her mother basically thought that, you know, the past from like slavery and things like that, let the past be the past. You know, those were traumatic times. Those were dark times. We're living in a new day now. It's a lighter feeling, you know, leave that stuff where it is. So her father wanted to let her know, you know, like where she came from, all the history behind her family. But her mother used to shut it down. Her mother passed away too, like, I guess, a while, you know, years and years ago. But this just goes through, it's dual timeline. It goes from like 18 something to present time. The letters from the ancestors, this is what held the story. The story was very slow in parts, and I was kind of mad at it at first, but like by the time you get to the end of the story, it was beautiful. That's all I'm gonna say. It was beautiful. It made sense why it was so slow. And just this one is one I will recommend, and I will always remember this story just because it just holds a certain place in my heart. Like it's just something about like your roots and just I loved it. Then I have Silent Waters. I think my last video was about this. So if you saw that video, you already know how I feel about this book. If you didn't see that video, go back and see it. But this one is a Brittany Cherry. This is the 3rd book in the Element series. I've read all the books by her. They got better with each one, I think. I don't know. The Fire Between High and Low and this one are like right up on each other for me. I will say The Air He Breathes is my least favorite, but I loved it just the same. Some people don't like The Air He Breathes right now. I'm not going to name names, but I saw your little update on Goodreads. I'm not feeling that. Hope you finish that book. But I get why they wouldn't. I don't know. I have a certain feeling about The Air He Breathes because I've said it 100 times that I could relate to that situation. Not the situation per se, but the feelings that they had in that. And I think at the time that I read it, I was already in my feelings. So I could relate a little bit more. If you can't relate to that type of situation, you may not feel it as much, but it is a beautiful story. All of these stories in this series are beautiful. This just follows a girl who went through some traumatic stuff. Her friend, her brother's best friend is who she ends up like loving and being with. And he basically helps her find her voice because she went silent and she didn't have anything to do with anything. She was just hopeless and down. He allowed her to find her light again. I'm not going to give any details away about this story because this is one I think you should just read for yourself. I'm not going to give you any type of premise. That's all I'm going to give you just because this story is just beautiful and I loved it. Then I have Beautiful Broken Love. This is another heartbreakingly beautiful story. So beautiful. 2 people that come together with 2 broken hearts to make each other whole again. Another one that I feel like you just gotta go in and read and just find the beauty for yourself. This was just It was just, I think all of these books, I was either reading them at the right times of the month, or they were just that good. Like, these books hit. I think I only had 2 out of the 8 that were in the 3-star status, and 3-star status isn't like bad to me. It was okay. Like, I'm not mad I read it. I don't regret it. You know what I mean? I'm not going to just give the book away just because, it was a 3-star. Like, it's not like that. Like, my 3 stars, anything between 3 and 4, so 3.25, 3.75, like, it's a good book. It just didn't hit me. When I start giving 4.5s and 5s, it's because I felt it, and I got lost, and it brought emotions out of me, whether it was fear or sadness or hope or whatever my feeling may be at the time. That's how you're going to get me to give you a 4.5 or a 5. But 3 isn't bad at all. It's just it's a decent book, But this one, y'all, beautiful. Last 2. Are these the last 2 I read? I don't know what I read. Oh, I talked about these in my last vlog. The Monsters We Defy. This follows Clara, and it's set in a 1919, 1920, during the DC riots. We're shortly after the DC riots. It's not about the riots at all. It's just mentioned. So, that's the time period that we're, in at the time. This follows Clara. She's born with a gift, so she can see auras and spirits, and she talks to spirits and things like that. So I go into detail about this book a little bit more on my previous vlog. So again, if you haven't seen that, go check it out. But so Clara can see these spirits and auras and things like that. And a while back, she was in a situation and she talked to the spirits to get her out of this. She got what she wanted, but there was a trick to it. And within this story, the basis of this story is that something's going on in this city, and Clara doesn't like it. She doesn't understand it. She wants to know more about it. She wants to fix it. So she talks to the spirit like, what can I do? She says, hey, it's a magical ring that's doing all of this. If you want this to stop, you get me that ring. So she has to pull off a heist to be able to get this ring from this like powerful socialite. And she's like, how in the world am I going to do that? So she teams up with 2, 3 other, special people that have gifts as well. And it's just their journey. It's a little bit of romance in here. It's some folk magic in here. It's historical fiction. You get a little sprinkle of some suspense. You get a little bit of everything in this one too. This book was just too slow for me. It was good. It was a good book. But for the premise of the story, what I think the story could have been, it needed to speed up a little bit. It's like it went. As soon as I opened this book, it was going. I'm like, oh man, it's going to be better than I thought. Why did I put this off so long? But like at that 30% to like 60% mark, like that middle, oh my God, y'all, it was so slow. But then it sped back up for the last 30%. So that's what saved it. Honestly, this might not have been a decent book had it not sped up, but it sped up. It wrapped everything in a nice little bow, and I loved how it ended. So if you're looking for something a little bit different, this is a good one to go in. If like those genres aren't, your jam and what you usually read, and you want something a little bit different like I did, this is a good one. Just know it is very slow in the middle. That's the only gripe I have about this book, but it was very different to read. I'm proud of myself for reading it. Go pick it up. Then, say the best for last, y'all. Not the best book for last, but the funniest book. Ella Gets the D. Talked about this one in my last vlog as well. This follows Ella. She catches her husband cheating on her in her home, in her bed. So clearly she's like, I'm out of here. She's got 2 small children. She has nowhere to go because her husband was the breadwinner. But her best friend is like, hey, go stay in my extra house that I have. Nobody stays there. Stay there to the end of the year till you get on your feet. She's like, oh my God, thank you. I love you. So she goes to this house, and little does she know, at some point of her being in this house, somebody shows up. Little does she know, her best friend, her brother actually lives there. Her sister knew that, but he lives in London. He's never in the States. So I think this might be in DC too, or Virginia, or somewhere East Coast. So this is just the story of obviously her getting with her best friend's brother. It's a secret at first. It's an age gap. She's older than him. It's funny, laugh out loud funny on a few parts. Like, it is definitely a good palate cleanser. Is this like the best book I ever read? Absolutely not. But I think this came in between some like heavier or more serious books, and this was just what I needed. It was funny, and it made me realize like I haven't read a good rom-com And I love a rom-com in a minute. So I'm definitely making sure I put a couple rom-coms on my March TBR just because I missed laughing at a book instead of crying or feeling sad or, you know, being taken places that are so dark or, you know, I don't know. So this was a pleasant surprise and I did really enjoy this one. All right, y'all. That's all I got. Those are the 8 books that I read. Hope you enjoyed. I hope you put some of these books on your TBR. I know a few of you have. Just some like messages on YouTube or messages on Goodreads or TikTok or whatever. And I love that. I love that I can put a book on your shelf because I watch y'all to put books on my shelves. And I need to stop watching y'all because y'all, I'm not even going to talk about it because that's a whole other video about another book haul, but coming soon. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support, for the messages, the comments. I live for the comments. That lets me know like you're really interested in what I'm doing and what I'm saying. And I just love the interaction. And I will see you guys on the next one.